Well, hello, family and friends. Guess what? It's time again for Faithful Friday. 2 Timothy 2:13 says this. It says, even if we are unfaithful, God remains faithful, for he cannot deny who he is. God is always faithful. And so, since it's Faithful Friday, it's time to share another testimony of God's faithfulness. So you might be asking, Candace, what do you mean by testimony? Are we going to court or something what's going on, right? Well, a simple way to define the word testimony is simply this: do it again, God. You see, Romans chapter 2, verse 11 says that God shows no favoritism. What that means is he loves me, or he loves you just as much as he loves me. He loves all of his kids equally. And I know that's hard to understand, but listen, so if God would do it for me, he would do it for you. As such, since God did it for me, listen, because I know he wants to do it for you, it's time to share a testimony of God's faithfulness. Well, if you know anything at all about me, if you've been around me for any period of time, you've heard me say this: I love God's butts. Uh-oh, did she actually say that? Yes, I did. So you might be saying, like, what in the world do you mean, Candace? You love God's butts? I don't understand. That's kind of crazy. Well, listen, when I mean that, when I say I love God's butts, what I mean is I love the suddenlies of God. When all of a sudden, suddenly, God moves mountains on your behalf. The thing that you've been praying for, that you think that you've been petitioning God for, suddenly, instantaneously, without delay, without haste, boom, God moves. Those are God's butts. Today I'm going to be sharing with you one of my family's God's butts. You know, last week I shared part 1 of God's miraculous provision for our family. You can go back and watch that video. Today I'm sharing with you part 2 of that. So in 2014, as I shared with you last week, our family had bought a home that was new to us, and it needed a total remodel. Like, we took it all the way down to the studs, y'all. So unfortunately, due to some complications, when it was time to move into that house, the house was completely inhabitable. Well, as I said last week, we had 2 pressing needs. Number 1, we needed a place to live, and number 2, we needed a place to store our possessions. Again, go listen to last week's video, and it'll share with you how God provided a place for us to live. This is about part 2. We needed somewhere to put our possessions. As I mentioned last week, things looked really bleak. Despair and discouragement, they were pounding at the doors of our hearts. But God. So as I told you last week, we were on a drive out to the new to us house, and we were driving the same way we have always driven. And on that way, on that drive, I cried out to God. I prayed out to him. Listen, have you ever just prayed those prayers where it's like, I muster every bit of faith? Like, it's not about volume, but it's like, oh, you know that you're putting everything that you have into your prayers. Well, that was kind of one of those faith-filled prayers. I cried out and I was like, Lord, listen, I know it's your will to provide for us. I know that you have great things in store for us. And I just prayed out to him and asked him to help. And as I mentioned last week, within minutes, within moments of crying out to God, he answered the first prayer of ours, and he provided us an RV to live in. And then a few minutes later, we exited off the highway. We were going the same way. Seriously, I cannot tell you how many times we went down the same road, the same path over and over and over again. But all of a sudden, when we exited off, we saw something we had never seen before. Over on the right side of the highway, there was this huge plot of land, and on that land, there was a ton of 40-foot shipping containers, and there was a huge sign that said shipping containers could be rented out. I can't tell you how many times we drove in this way, and I can promise you this: we had never, ever once seen that huge plot of land with those 40-foot shipping containers. It's almost like it appeared that day out of nowhere. So guess what? We pulled into the lot, and when we pulled into the lot, we saw a man that was out working the lot, and he came over to us and said, "Howdy, folks." No, we were in West Texas, so we say howdy out there. He said, "Howdy, listen, it's actually kind of amazing that you caught me out here. You see, I only come out here by appointment usually. How can I help you?" Well, we explained to him what we were needing, that we were needing a place to put our possessions, somewhere clean, and we wanted it on our property. And his response was so amazing. He said, "Well, actually, I have this 40-foot shipping container over here that it's just been renovated. It's been freshly painted. It's perfect for household possessions. And guess what? If you will go ahead and rent it today, I'll take it to your property right now, and I'll waive the shipping container transfer fee." And just like that, in a moment's notice, practice of crying out to God, bam, God moved suddenly on our behalf, and we had somewhere to put our possessions. Friends and family, listen, if God would do it for me, he would do it for you. What are you needing? What are you crying out for God? What are you needing miraculous provision for? Because God will do it for you. Did you know that one of his names is Jehovah Jireh, which means the Lord who provides? That literally means the Lord who sees to it. It comes from Genesis 22:14, where Abraham had taken his son Isaac and was going to go sacrifice him on the altar because he was obeying God. And out of nowhere, boom, there's a ram where he would no longer have to sacrifice his son, but he could sacrifice the ram. That is Jehovah Jireh, the Lord who provides, literally the Lord who sees to it. What do you need provision for today? Because I just bless you that you can cry out to God. You can tell him what you need, and in faith, believe that he will provide for you. So I hope this blessed you today. I encourage you today to seek the giver of life. And as you seek him, make sure that you share your testimonies, your but God's. You do it again. God, you did it for me, you do it for them. And share it with enthusiasm and excitement, because listen, God is exciting and he does amazing things, and he should get all the glory. And as for me, as for our home, as for the Banks Bunch, we won't ever stop telling of all the amazing things we have seen and heard the Lord do. Blessings and favor be upon you. We'll see you next time. Bye.